Hello, my name is James. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The previous episode dropped a big bombshell on viewers. Flight 828 was not an isolated incident. Cleared for approach spends a large portion of the hour getting to know our latest time traveler, Zeke. Matt Long does a great job throughout this episode, especially because his scenes could fall apart if Zeke and Michaela didn't have chemistry. Manifest seems to have officially expanded its love triangle into a square. Unlike the passengers, Zeke went hiking by himself and has no one else to relate to this time jump. Why should he believe two strangers who just showed up on his cabin steps? Naturally, he declines an invitation by Ben to meet with Saanvi since he'd rather stay in the cabin. Michaela decides she's going to stick around as well rather than head back to the city right away. Ben jumps into Big Brother mode and immediately thinks Michaela is in over her head. They don't know anything about Zeke and he finds it suspicious their new friend hasn't asked to contact friends or family. He also seems to forget that Michaela is an actual detective who's more than capable of handling sticky situations. She promises to stay safe and find out more about Zeke on her own. However, when she begins pressing him for more information, Zeke begins to clam up. He won't be able to escape his destiny no matter how hard he tries though. After getting frustrated due to Michaela asking questions about his family, he goes to storm off. When she grabs him, the two share a dual calling. While Manifest may have skimped on the CGI in this scene, it's interesting to see these two share such an intriguing bond. Some of the passengers have shared similar callings but none of them have been together in them. The calling includes Zeke's voice telling the two to go back. After some gentle prodding from Michaela, he agrees to take her back to the cave. They banter briefly before Michaela goes to grab some supplies before they set out. At the store, she finds a missing poster and the cashier explains his own theories behind Zeke's disappearance. Apparently, his younger sister Chloe had died up on the mountain. Already thinking the worst, Michaela rushes back to find the cabin abandoned. Luckily, he doesn't get that far before she's able to track him down. As expected, Zeke is ready to take off and just become a footnote in this story. However, Michaela isn't going to allow that to happen. When they share another calling, she pushes him again to take her there so they can figure this all out. Eventually, he relents but says once they're done he's leaving. At least Michaela did get him some pork rinds to snack on throughout the hike. Upon finding the cave, Michaela is sure to take plenty of pictures to send to Ben. Sadly, they don't find any answers to the calling but instead experience it again. She realizes that they need to be looking at the vision from his point of view. When she asks what stars mean to him, Zeke finally admits the real reason he had gone hiking. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a 12-step program to make amends. He was on step 5, admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. What had he done wrong? Zeke holds himself responsible for killing his sister. When he was 15, he had agreed to take her up to a ravine but wound up taking a phone call from a girl. He wasn't paying attention and she wound up falling in. He's never had the guts to visit the memorial up on the mountain, which is exactly what he had been trying to do. Michaela can relate to his feelings of guilt and pain because of what happened to her best friend. She shares her own experiences and the two ultimately decide to continue on their trek. At Chloe's memorial, Zeke isn't able to speak to her. Instead, he tells a cute story of their childhood to Michaela and decides to build a cairn in her memory. When they finished, the calling returns but now it's Michaela's voice telling them to go back. Now she thinks it's her job to reintroduce Zeke to society. He agrees to return to the city but he's not quite ready to contact his parents yet. That's enough for now. And the two make their way back down the mountain. Meanwhile, Ben is dealing with a problem and not related to the major in this week's manifest. Cody Weber, Patrick Minnie, has started up a site to try and harass the passengers of Flight 828. He thinks they could be aliens and finds it weird the government would plant them all around the world. While the Stone family has ignored most of the publicity they've gotten thanks to the incident, Weber makes it impossible to ignore him. Grace, Ben, and Cal return home to be greeted by an ecstatic Olive. The Stone family spends the afternoon enjoying each other's company and playing games. Right on cue, Jared shows up to try and figure out where Michaela is. Come on Jared, stop chasing after your wife's best friend. He has to know Michaela doesn't want to hurt Lourdes and it's not fair for him to keep trying. Nevertheless, Ben and Grace are able to shrug off Michaela's absence at the moment. Weber and his friends spray paint the stone house and throw a brick through the window. Jared is able to drag Weber into custody, but eventually, they have to cut him loose. Ben takes things into his own hands and confronts Weber at his shop. Unsurprisingly, the guy begins to rile Ben up by threatening Cal. Thanks to his live stream, the police wind up arresting Ben for his threats. However, Manifest seems to gloss over the fact that Weber threatened Cal in his video. Not to mention, it seems pretty illegal that Weber is posting photos of Cal, a minor, as well as his address on his site. Nevertheless, Jared is furious that Ben would use him for information. He's able to get him off with just a warning, but lets him know next time he won't be so lucky. Later that night, Ben returns home again to tearfully try and get rid of the red paint on his door. Grace consoles him and gently asks him to return. It's actually a tender moment between the two, especially because Manifest has struggled to make Grace empathetic. Hopefully, these two are smooth sailing from here on out. Speaking of Grace, she gets a few good scenes this week. She agrees with Ben about not telling Olive until they can be positive nothing will happen. It's also a nice touch that Grace acknowledges that leaving her out of the loop could make her feel isolated. Typically it feels like characters like to use the "but I was protecting you" excuse and be surprised when someone is upset by the secret. She also gets to comfort Cal as he struggles to deal with his new reality. He doesn't know what happened to him on the plane or why he's experiencing these weird visions. Grace immediately lets him know that he's her son no matter what. However, seeing her have these adorable moments with her family makes us worried about her fate. Could Manifest be redeeming her character only to rip her away? She definitely is a member of the Stone family whose death would affect Ben and Cal the most. Saanvi has kind of gotten the short straw of the main characters recently. We haven't gotten to spend all that much time with her since she's not related to Ben or Michaela. However, Cleared for Approach does introduce some intriguing elements to her backstory. Mainly the fact that she was supposed to be traveling with someone on Flight 828. Who was the passenger in 8B? Could he have cancelled at the last minute because he knew something would happen? At least she confirms that Zeke does share the same markers in his blood as the other passengers. He's officially a time traveler like the rest of them. She also thinks his experience is an aftershock from Flight 828. This probably means there are more isolated incidents which are waiting to be discovered. It's an effective way for Manifest to lean back on the Case of the Week format it started with. However, on her way out the door from her lab she finds a red X across her door. Looks like Weber's following is beginning to expand. Manifest ends this with Michaela and Zeke discovering a stick figure drawing of two people holding hands. As they stumble upon it, the two happen to be, in fact, holding hands. As they look at it, lightning begins to strike and we're left wondering if they're traveling again. That would definitely throw a wrench in everyone's plans. Generally, Cleared for Approach does a decent job of world building within this universe. With the rise of Weber's new army of hatred, the main characters have a myriad of problems to deal with. However, we couldn't help but cringe when Olive mentioned her profound knowledge of mythology only to claim Juno was a Greek goddess. Really, Manifest? What did you think of this week's episode? Will Grace survive the season? Be sure to tell us in the comments section below.